Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome for book group today. As you no doubt recall from last week, Bill is over here actually in the UK doing some filming for the next episode of the Awakening Mind films. So I'm here along with Rosalyn Rouke. Hi Rosalyn.
Hi there. Hi,
Hi.
everyone. Yeah, so great to be here.
Thank you for being here. And that's it, we're spotlighted. I can see you now. So we're here to discuss 311 to 320. So 311, Rosalyn, what were your takeaways from that? What came to you from that contemplation?
Well, the word taint, I think, is a very important word in the headline. What is the taint of the nirvikalpa state? And I think it's important that he calls it a state as well. And he says something inevitably draws you out of that state. That must evidently be the feeling that you went into it by your own effort. That's the important part. Therefore, it is transient. I think that's one of the holographic messages. If we take in that message and generalize it, everything that's from our own effort is going to be transient. And then he says, moreover, when you come out of it, you again see a world unexplained because something of the world remains in you still. And I think this is great guidance. You hear so many people, if you listen to Muji or even our teachers in the States, people saying, 10 years ago, I had this experience of the lights and the this and the that. And like, how can I get it again? Where did it go? I wanted to. And it's all about the I and my experience and the doer underneath what they're saying. But if they understood just this one thing, you didn't do that one, and you don't need to try doing it again, and you'll be fine. Like, you will then know what it is you're trying to get, is what I take away. What about you? What is your response to that?
Well, the first word that, as you pointed to, that stood out was taint, because we hear about the nirvikalpa samadhi as at first blush something desirable, something that we want. So what's this about taint? But then, exactly as you said, if it's a state, then it comes and goes. We can go in it and come out of it. So that's not it. That's not the full awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we remember the definition of nirvikalpa, it's without objects. And if this personal self is another object, that's another clue that we're not there.
Yeah.
If we're wanting again. Yeah. Yeah. You want to go on?
Yeah, let's. And please feel free to post in the chat if you have comments or questions or whatever.
So,
312 Bakti and Yuna, I can never say that one.
Yana.
Thank you. Paths.
Do you want me to go, or do you?
You go. Yeah.
Okay. Bhakti cripples your ego. So bhakti is that devotional path. Bhakti cripples your ego and makes you feel equal to the most insignificant blade of grass. And you conceive your God as the conceivable absolute. Thus, when your ego is at last lost, you automatically reach the position of the Godhead. And I think it's the idea that the bhakti, you've made it personal. So now it's in your heart. And once the Godhead is seen, then once the ego is gone, then the Godhead is you. It is kind of how I see it. And then the Yanni, now this one I don't know about. I mean, I know it theoretically. It's supposed to take you step by step into the discrimination of higher reason. I think we're being taught over and over that the mind can't do it, that the thinking mind has its limitation. So I think maybe what he's meaning is that when you get an understanding at each step, then that generalizes and adds onto itself. And it's not really the personal thinking mind that's so mercurial. But I think he's talking about the understanding kind of the way Jenny does. When you have the understanding, that's different from the thinking personal mind. What about you, Susan?
So for the Bakti part, to me, there was still sort of subject object there. And the sentence, you conceive your God as conceivable absolute. The whole point of the absolute is it's not conceivable. So it's almost like, it's keeping it in a kind of limited sense, perhaps, that the ego feels comfortable with. And also even just, cripples your ego. Like, I thought, that why did he use those words? Cripples your ego. And makes you feel equal to the most insignificant blade of grass. It's kind of pointed to me to almost a false humility.
Mm.
I don't know if that was meant, but it still seems like a being in charge, a keeping a hold of, I can conceive this, I can conceive the absolute.
I think what you're pointing out, Susan, is that these paths can be distorted by the ego, by the personal self. And I think he's meaning these things in a more pure way. So conceivable absolute sounds like the mind can conceive it. So, that's language, again, the limitation of language. I think he meant that the heart, because this is bhakti, the heart has taken God in as believable, as understandable, as me, as connected to me. Yes, you start out as two. It definitely is two. Both of these paths are two to start with. And then I don't think he meant it in the way that we hear it, with that humble, false humbleness, with the insignificant blade of grass. I think when someone is purely into bhakti, everything is them, the grass, the Godhead, no separation. I think that's where it's leading, but it so could be distorted by the person doing it, right?
Yeah.
Great stuff, Susan.
Catherine has said the mind is great for asking questions but cannot give answers beyond what it already knows. It does not understand the infinite. That's really what I was trying to see. Conceivable absolute sounded like an oxymoron to me.
Yeah, I get that. That's beautiful, Catherine. Thank you. Yeah.
Patricia said knowledge helps remove the ignorance in the mind.
Mm.
Yeah, and these discourses are taking us step by step by the use of discrimination and higher reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, he says by this process you transcend mind and duality,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought kind of inferred that there was still mind and duality in the Bhakti path and reach the ultimate reality.
I think any of these paths start in the dual. dualistic, because once you're there, it's not a path anymore. Once you understand it, you're no longer on a path.
Yeah. Yeah. Amy's saying the next discourse brings additional clarity. So
Why don't you go with that one, Susan?
let's move on to that one. The ignorant Bakta always chooses to remain as the ego in the Dvaitic level and to do homage to the personal God as distinct and separate from him. But the Bhakta whose devotion has received an Advaitic touch from a Karana guru conceives his personal God as Atma Murti, establishing thereby a direct and personal relationship with him. Thus, Radha's Krishna was the witness and Radha was the ego. This approach by itself takes one right to the ultimate truth. I don't know about you, Rosalyn, but there was a bit of looking up for me to do in this paragraph. What did you make of this?
Yeah, it was a lot of looking up for me. It was probably the most confusing one on this, except that I think he's taking us to the witness, to the idea of the witness and the ultimate truth when it's disinterested, because the next paragraph ends up with the disinterested witness. And that's the important word, disinterested. Because when we're the local observer, we still have thoughts and feelings about the outcome of what we're witnessing. So it has to be what he's talking about, has to be the disinterested witness. And I thought he was just introducing the idea of really what you were saying. It starts out, Bhakti starts out with an ego and a dualistic position, but then one has to become disinterested in order to have any further exposure to the ultimate.
Yeah, I think he's splitting someone on the path of bhakti into two streams, as it were, isn't he? The ignorant bhakta, which ignorance is usually defined as still having a belief in the separate self, still chooses to remain as the ego with. So there's the person and the personal God, which is separate. But then the Karana guru, that's the guru, isn't it, who takes you all the way to awakening.
Have all those different levels of gurus there.
Yeah.
And I think Karana is the highest level.
Yeah. And the Atma, I don't even know how to say it. Is it Atma Murti or Atma Murti? I'm not sure. Is the personification of the divine. That's the definition that I read. That's personalized. Which is why he mentions then Radha and Krishna, who were the personification of Shiva and Shakti.
Yeah. Is there anything in the chat that we need to see here?
No, there's nothing in the chat.
So, should we go on to thoughts?
Yeah, let's.
Thoughts may be viewed with equal advantage in three different ways in relation to yourself. You may choose any one or more of these ways as pure consciousness, and so yourself in essence, as shining in your own light, and so pointing to your real nature, as the witnessed, yourself being the disinterested witness. Well, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think there's anything hard about these three ways. What do you think?
Well, I would like to discuss more what the difference is between the three ways or among the three ways.
So the first one, I'm thinking Isn't that interesting that I used the word thinking there? If thoughts, which are the subject, are pure consciousness, then I don't need to evaluate my thought. I don't need to say, oh, is this an attack thought? Is this a kind thought? Is this a loving thought? Do I believe this thought? Is it right? Is it all of those, places that we take off looping? If I just see it as pure consciousness, I'm not involved. It just is something, energy passing through, just what science says. If I see, so do you have more to say on number one?
Only that, there is only consciousness, so thought cannot be other than that. But I felt all three were saying the same thing, and I wasn't really seeing what the distinctions were. Yeah, Susan's saying he does say they are of equal advantage, but I just wondered what the point was here of actually enumerating three separate ones. I wasn't seeing what, there's obviously a reason for that. He answered in these three ways, and I wasn't seeing what he was pointing at.
I think some people can't do the witness thing. They just don't understand it. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm in my thoughts and my feelings. They are me. I don't know what you're talking about. And then the best they can do is judge their thoughts and feelings, the local observer. So that one, it wouldn't be for them. That one, it's just three different, it's not that have any different meaning. You're exactly right, I think. They come down to the same thing. If you already know what you just said, everything is pure consciousness, then we don't even have to have this discussion. But not everybody starts there. And so we're talking about different ways that people can enter. So if you took number two, people who've done, for example, A Course in Miracles, they've already done a lot of work with their own light. So that could be a doorway for them. So, we're talking about people who don't have the complete understanding what might be ways to enter. That's the way I took it. But I think you're right. They all end up the same.
Yeah. Thank you. Catherine said, known as top down or bottom up. Can you say more about that, Catherine?
Yeah.
Where are you? Do you want to come on and talk to us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, let me just spotlight you. So there you go. Hello.
Hi, how you guys doing? I have been away and Wednesdays don't usually work for me anymore because I'm doing classes, but I've never missed a class. I actually enjoy doing it offline a bit because I stop and start a lot and I get to pause. When we're on, we're like going straight on, right? You have to keep up. And I'm usually a bit slower, so I actually enjoy going slower. It's just a lot of the training I've been doing lately. I know you have speakers that use this term in different speakers that you have. I think Roger Costello uses this term, bottom up, top down, so that people who work like with me have gone right to Rupert and Francis. That's top down. They take you directly to the top, and then you work your way down. Other people just learn from the bottom up, which is through School of Hard Knocks, maybe grew up Catholic religion, which I did, which is you don't read the Bible, you don't ask for information, you don't search, you just believe and have faith. That's coming at it from the bottom up. And then little by little, you realize, from the bottom up, you realize, you mean I'm not my mind? Nobody talked about that in the Bible, in my Christian religion. So it's just coming from two different places. one's not better than the other. It's not, regardless of how people make that sound. It's not, because we're predestined to learn however we're going to learn. We don't really have a say in it. We're just kind of living our life the best we can. So it doesn't matter how we come at it. That's just a term that I thought you might recognize.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Halger said bottom up equals progressive, top down is direct path. Both work together, which is what Catherine said. Amy said, in relation to my little self, thought may be seen to arise in pure consciousness. In relation to my little self, thought may arise in the light of my own self-illuminating awareness and so point to my real nature. And in relation to my little self, thought may be seen to arise as they are witnessed by the self. Thank you, Amy.
Yes, let's move on. So this next one, how to face emotions. I love looking at the last line of this one first. So knowing that what he's about to tell us, in either case, emotion fails to do you any harm. That is very comforting, because we can be very, as personal selves, feel distressed by emotions and get involved with them. And this helps with that. The comfort for me helps to maintain or just to step into the disinterest. So here's where the witness is of great help, the disinterested witness, in my opinion. So he says, one, by trying to see what you may face your emotions successfully in two ways. By trying to see that you are the silent witness of the emotion without doing any violence to the system. So it's like feelings can't hurt you. Remember that old saying, I don't know if they had it in Great Britain, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never harm me. Well, it turns out that isn't true as far as trauma work, but as far as the truth of reality, yes. By trying to see that emotion rises in you, abides in you, and vanishes into you, and so is made of your real nature itself. I mean, those are sweet words. What you thought is hurting you is made of something else.
Yeah. And the you that he's referring to there is not the little self. You know, it's the...
It links. Would say there is no little self. No, Jenny would say there is no ego. And so we can just let it be. But it is useful, I think, that concept to a degree of a little self or an ego.
So I think what he's saying, though, is that emotion rises in consciousness, abides in consciousness, vanishes into consciousness.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so
by the way, that little you, I think, is very helpful in the beginning. When you don't have a feeling, when a person doesn't yet have that understanding or connection to the word consciousness or pure consciousness, like, where do I start? Well, the little you is a great place to start, because that implies a bigger you. Yeah. Do you want to do the next one?
Yeah, so 315, can a sage who has left his mortal coil be a guru to a new aspirant? And I was quite surprised by this emphatic answer. No, never. Because, we hear of people who have dreams about gurus, or, a guru came to them. Exactly, Amy. Amy Huebel has just said, how do you feel Tom Dass would respond to this? Rosalyn and I were actually discussing this before we came live. because he does see Ramana Maharshi as his teacher. And I just asked him on that recent podcast, you know, the devotion is not to the person of Ramana Maharshi, though, is it, Tom? And he said, no, yes, it is. It is. So this seems to be in contradiction of that. And also somebody recently, who I can't remember who it was, but somebody just recently in the last couple of weeks said that Nisargadatta appeared in a dream to them, sitting on the end of his bed. But he's Atmananda says, when a sage leaves his mortal coil, nothing remains over except pure Atma. But if the relationship has been directly established when the sage was alive, it's enough to lead the aspirant to the ultimate truth. So, interesting. Interesting.
So he has a caveat to the no never, because that word but changes his previous sentence. So he's saying, if the relationship has been directly established when the sage was alive. So I guess he's still saying you need to get it from an alive person. Yeah.
It seems that way.
Yeah. And I think what he's saying also is the transmission has to be more than the perfume. You know, that you can't just get the whiff of someone who hasn't been alive. I don't know. I think this is just part of that whole guru system. Is beyond us.
The other interesting thing I thought was the fact whether such a guru-disciple relationship has been directly established is known only to the guru. That seems.
Can you say that again?
So he says the fact whether such a guru-disciple relationship has been directly established is known only to the guru.
Isn't that interesting? Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. That was my reaction. Yeah. Because you might say, oh, such and such a person is my guru, but he's saying, well, that's only known to the guru. The fact of regular tattvo padesha, which I had to look up as well, is pointing out of reality. So even though, you know, your true nature has been pointed out to you by the guru, that's not enough. That's not the criterion for being in a guru-disciple relationship. But he says, if the disciple has deep love and devotion for the person of the guru, who is a sage, it is enough. And that's exactly what Tom Das says. He has deep love for the person of Ramana Maharshi. Nothing more is needed by way of sadhana or instruction to reach the ultimate and stand established there. And then he says, someone who I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce was a living example of this fact. I'm not familiar with that person. Oh, there's somebody, is there somebody unmuted? No, there isn't, there's just us. So, can everyone else hear that sound? It's like a kind of droning sound. I wonder what that is.
Susan, I think it might be.
Is it coming from your background?
I think it might be coming from outside my house, but it's gone now.
That's all right. As long as we know where it's from. Even if the disciple is incapable of such love and devotion for the guru at the outset, there is no cause for discouragement, because the guru is love incarnate. I like that. And that, incidentally, is the name of Jan Fraser's new book.
Oh,
Just recently been published as well as your book, Rosalyn. She called it Love Incarnate. Yeah. Yeah.
That next
Does anyone else have anything to say about the kind of guru-disciple relationship? You know, I think we've spoken about this a bit in this book group. You know, is an external guru necessary? You know, do we need a living teacher? What do people think?
Well, it's for me, I have a bit of an experience about this alive and this dead, because whenever I think of my daughter, who had messages, whatever you want to make of it, before she died, she didn't know she was dying, but she got direct downloads that were quite extreme. That's not part of what I want to say here. And our relationship was quite resolved. So when I think of her, unless I'm thinking of the personal, my daughter and our experiences, but when she comes to me at particular moments, it's not the person. It's such a high wisdom. I don't really have words for it, but it's not of my thinking. It's always a knowing that I didn't have in the seconds before that. It's, but it's not personal. And there was a moment, and this could be too woo-woo for anybody else, but I did hear the words from her early on after she died. You are too connected to the memory of me. You need to let go of that so that you can take all the rest. And that is what happened. I didn't do it. I wouldn't know how. If you said to me, do that, I couldn't. But that is what happened over, seems like time. I don't know that it happened in a moment. But is this like a guru that's dead or something? I don't know, but it seems relevant. It's a transmission that comes, but not from a person. But the love is there. So is it the love, the pureness of that love with no obstacles? Because we had many obstacles in our relationship, but not at the end. So I don't know if there are parallels or if it says anything, but it seems kind of relevant.
And that just seems such a wonderful demonstration of that sentence. The guru is love incarnate.
Yeah.
It's love incarnate.
Yeah. And that love is so different than I love you because you did that for me and you're so, loving to me. It's love that includes wisdom and reality and almost a disinterest, even though that doesn't usually go with the word love, because we think of that with attachment. It's a different perspective or opening to pure consciousness or whatever. I don't have the words, but yeah. What is that? Let's see. Let's look at the chat.
Holger wants to say something. Hey,
Yes,
Holger.
yes. Hello. I just wanted to say in regard to guru, I find it invaluable to have other human beings to speak with, to exchange. And this was my experience with a friend. I wouldn't call him guru, but he helped me immensely to feel something, to be pulled out of my me bubble. That there was a component of feeling deeply touched in my heart and to trusting him. And I think that's maybe the most important part. So not to have something that gets submitted to someone, transmitted, but to feel this human presence and to have the trust and the faith to betray what I believed to be myself. And this jumping over the cliff, I couldn't do this for decades on my own. No matter how much I listened to teachings, how many books I read, there was always this holding to my me identity. And through this friend, I was capable, I was assisted, I was giving a hand to just trust and this is for me Guru.
Holger, that's beautiful. Thank you.
And on one level, we are all each other's Guru
Mm-hmm.
because there is only one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Susan, please.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, this is an interesting topic to me because I sometimes hear different opinions, yes, from being you need an individual guru, yeah, to it can also awakening of consciousness can also come through as a teaching. And another way I've heard it expressed is that I guess those are really, or it can come, it's maybe what Holger was saying a little bit though. Can it also, his question, can it also come from different sources or for like a community like this that we're engaged in, right? So I wonder about the significance of a specific person like Tom has, right? Like Tom Dash has, or, that type of dedication. And maybe a lot of you also have individual gurus. My sense comes from teachings and community. And yes, I see a lot of things in the chat. Yes, of course, there's only one source, but you do have people like Tom Doss, and they are definitely receiving the transmission, as he calls it, the transference, right, Susan, is coming. That's a direct. So it's almost the gurus is still a portal, right? So it there should not be a duality there, really.
Yeah.
Is that, what do you guys think about that, right? Because otherwise you are in duality again with you and this person who's really not the point of the whole thing, right? I think even Tom would say that he's not there. Tom, he doesn't exist. I've seen the podcast, Susan. Right? So in that sense,
that's where we land back, isn't it? There's only one. There's only one being.
I think so.
It's interesting too, I think, that so many, spiritual teachers such as, Francis and Rupert, to take two examples, never call themselves gurus. They refer to themselves as spiritual friends. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Susan.
And I think that the word duality always goes with ignorance. I mean, it's so if we're in ignorance, we're in duality, and then that's the disinterested witness can be that next step. I'm not saying you don't need anyone else. I don't know how to weigh in on that.
Yeah. Let's see what the chat says. Amy said, so many teachers get direct downloads, as Rosalyn says. I'm thinking Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, and Tom Dass, all minds are joined. Lynn said, yes, a living teacher, a true teacher is required, even if it's only one meeting. There's a knowing when one meets their Karana guru. Carol said, is it you feeling you? Elizabeth, it does seem relevant and has a deeper meaning of reality, essence, and being, a very profound gift. Eve said, this discussion is implying separation. However, I contend that all teaching is accessible by all, as there is only one, truly only one. Yeah, that's kind of where we landed, Eve, wasn't it? There's only one source. A community is only as enlightened as the most enlightened member of the group. Melanie's saying, did Eckhart have a guru? And Amy said, no, he had a direct download one night. Yeah, he was about to commit suicide, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Holger, duality is beautiful. Duality is the mechanism of expressing love, beauty, intelligence. And Melissa said the infinite can use infinite ways to communicate itself.
Mm.
Thank you all so much for your lovely comments.
Yeah. That
So,
last paragraph before we move on, he says, even if the disciple is incapable of such deep love and devotion for the Guru at the outset, there is no cause for discouragement because the Guru is love incarnate. That's what you said before. Even if the aspirant is mentally prepared to make a surrender to the Guru on the body level, and if he has the readiness to listen and act up to the instructions of the Guru, at least for the time being, he is provisionally accepted as a disciple. So this is very evaluative. Later on, when the truth is imparted to him in the regular order, so this is very progressive. The whole of the Guru goes into the disciple and takes his abode there. It is only then that the aspirant becomes a regular disciple and the relationship is established forever. Oof. Wow.
that seems quite foreign, really, to us, doesn't it? That sense that, what does that mean? The whole of the Guru goes into the disciple. Reminds me of the Christian concept of the descent of the Holy Spirit. That kind of thing. Yeah.
And he goes on, Susan, why don't you do what is surrender? Because that says more about this.
Yeah, so 316. Surrender, so far as the ignorant man is concerned, is only of upadhi to upadhi on the body level. Somebody remind me what upadhi is, because I've omitted that. Limitation. So surrender is only of limitation to limitation on the body level. But spiritual surrender means surrender of the ego to the Atma in one, Atma being represented by the Guru. This is possible only at an advanced stage when the disciple is capable of cognizing the impersonal. Therefore, real surrender is possible only after visualization of the truth, and it can never be insisted upon as a qualification for realization, much less for initiation. It is said the Guru is immanent in all as pure Atma, but he is immanent particularly in the disciple to a much greater degree on account of the relationship.
Yeah.
So I suppose the what sticks out for me there is when the disciple is capable of cognizing the impersonal, because up to that point there's still a doer, isn't there? There's still separation, there's still a disciple and a guru, they're still trying to do something or get somewhere, or somebody who does the surrendering.
I'm thinking of this is not exactly what he's talking about, but I think everybody who's been to a Rupert event or a Francis event, I'm not sure about that there. There was a time that I watched people who are very much in their questioning mind ask questions and questions, and then Rupert answers and so on. And then there was a moment one time when a person said, wait, I realize I'm asking questions because I'm only wanting this with you.
Mm.
And that stayed with me. That might have been 5 or 10 years ago. But I think there's something in there about the transmission that person got. I just want the transmission. And my questions and my mind are just struggling to get in that place of being available to that transmission. it was quite, for me, extraordinary, because they stepped out of their mind and into a knowing of what was going on.
Yeah.
And before then, I think they weren't ready to receive anything but answers to the mind.
Because that's what happens in the initial stages, isn't it? That we want so desperately to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, because of our conditioning, that the only way we can understand is to know it with the intellect.
Yes, that's beautifully said. Yeah.
Jenny said, a lovely system, nothing wrong with it, but clearly progressive and rooted in subservience, serving the guru, and outdated because of the availability of the direct path these days. That's such a good point, Jenny. That we have all of these resources. The direct path is so available to us, whereas not all that long ago, you had to go to India, you had to find a guru, you had to become a disciple, you had to be part of that system. Kendall, I feel we as humans in a body still get trapped in the doership of guru to student and lapse in the essence of love, truth simply flowing and evolving.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Kendall.
Amy said, Rupert and Francis both asked lots and lots of questions. As they have said, it's okay to ask. It's better to ask than remain silent out of fear.
Surely.
Yeah, that stage of wanting the intellectual understanding is not wrong. It's part of the exploration. Dave said, Rupert said that questions by the mind are objections to abiding in being. And yet I still stand with what I just said, that they're a necessary part until they're not. And
some people come with formed questions because that's just the way they're embodied in this world. They come with a mind that's active like that. And other people don't have a more Bakti way. And that's what we've been talking about, the Jnani and the Bakti versions of the path.
exactly.
And it's our nature. We come with a certain kind of embodiment that's different from one another, it seems, but yet there's just pure presence. It doesn't matter if the chair is red or green, or if we're a thinker or a more Bhakti kind of person. It's the ultimate is still the ultimate.
Thank you, Rosalyn. So 317.
How does a thought about the guru just before every activity help one? We usually take just a thought of the guru before taking to any activity, spiritual or worldly. What is the significance of this? It brings the living presence of the guru to preside over all our activities or to illuminate the whole experience. What I'm taking from this, and it's probably very simplistic and I never really thought of it before, is that this system of gurus is making the idea of God or the ultimate and the divine more accessible. So it's a step, like Godhead is supposed to, when I looked that up, it's the three parts: the mind, the spirit, the ultimate, all the ways. And now instead of putting it in the divine or in a word like God, we're putting it in the guru. And it's just makes it more accessible if you're in that system where there are these levels of gurus and they're accessible, and you get one and you stay with one, and there are the steps and they give you, it's a whole system. It's not just a relationship. It's kind of like a religion, really.
Yeah. What came to my mind there was the role of the priest in the Catholic Church, that intermediary between man and God, which is a feature of some progressive paths. You know, that's the yeah. I was about to say that's the difference of the direct path, but this is a direct path, and yet there's still this sense of intermediary.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's, you know, before you can, as he said in the last one, you know, when you're capable of cognizing the impersonal, then, you know, then you're in the direct path. But until then, there's the guru. Yeah, Lynn's saying guru is not the same as priest. Yeah, I know that. I meant in the position of, in the intermediate role. Holger saying guru is the remover of obstacles. But again, that implies dualism, doesn't it? That there's that we are in need of a guru to remove obstacles. Holger, please.
But wasn't it Ramana Maharshi who said, use a thorn to remove another thorn,
Yeah.
and then throw them both away? And the thorn are concepts. And it's okay. Duality is beautiful. It's powerful. It's not a mistake. It's not, the problem is not duality. The problem is the identity with the separate self.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Susie, do you want to take 318?
Yes. How can I prevent anything from being superimposed upon me? Thinking that you are Sat Chit Ananda takes you beyond the mere this aspect. Sat, existence, comprehends all life. Therefore, no particular aspect of life can be superimposed upon you. Chit, consciousness, comprehends all thought. Therefore, no thought can be superimposed upon you. Ananda, happiness, comprehends all feeling. Therefore, no feeling can be superimposed upon you. Therefore, you stand beyond the possibility of superimposition in the form of life, thought, or feeling. So what I took from that is, if what I am is everything, nothing can be superimposed that is other than me. Whether it's a thought, an aspect of life, or a feeling, nothing is other. Everything, as he said in that other one about thoughts, is pure consciousness, is made of your real nature, as he said in the one on emotions. So nothing can be superimposed because there is no other.
Yeah. I love the word superimposed. It makes it very real what we do when we have a story about what's happening and so on, where this is a great description. We're superimposing on a moment in time that has passed our interpretation. And then Catherine talks about judgment right here, that her comment fits here. The mind works in separation, in judgment. Once we realize we have all been on all sides of this human conditions, we're no longer in judgment, or at least we have the possibility of seeing. And we can be freed that way. Yeah, it takes the punch out of it. It takes the air out of it when we've been all sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes we haven't been all sides. We just have the potential. You know, I haven't been a Hitler, but I have the potential. I have been the potential. You know, that feeling of anger or wanting to hurt somebody. It's definitely been there in my life. It's even in children when they get so mad. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to hurt you. I don't love you. It's all there. Yeah.
Thank you, Rosalyn. Shall we go to 319?
Yeah. Activity as a sadhana to get established in truth. After visualizing the truth beyond all doubt, throw yourself, heart and soul, into any activity and lose yourself in it. This is what Holger's saying. The duality can be beautiful. It's a sadhana in itself, which takes you right to the reality each time. Thus, when we are engrossed in work, you have at the same time renounced the work. If you can see the entire world, including your own body, as only Drishna, the seeable, you are free and you have accomplished what has to be accomplished. For the ignorant man, ignorance of consciousness covers up the object. That's that superimposition. But for the sage, knowledge covers it up. Excuse me. When you know the chair, you do not think of seeing. It's only when you are questioned that you say, I saw. But consciousness stands behind the perception of a yanin, always knowing without knowing. So do you think here he's talking about knowing without thinking? That last few words there? Or understanding without knowing?
I think he's saying consciousness always knows itself. It always knows its own identity.
That's good.
Without being known by the mind of the whoever that person is that I can't say.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that is so that makes sense. So it is about without having to consciously think, consciousness knows itself. Yeah. Thank you.
I think the first sentence, because I thought, what does visualizing the truth mean? Because he's used that a couple of times, hasn't he? He said real surrender is possible only after visualization of the truth. So what specifically is that referring to? Visualization of the truth. I mean, the truth is knowing the self, knowing that we are the self. We're not the illusory separate self, but visualization of the truth.
Here's how I heard that, because I think it's a great point. And we don't know if it's the translator or the person who wrote this down, or actually Shri, Atmananda, who said it, but we all have different preferences for how we talk and how we our preferred way. Some people are visual, some people are auditory. And so I might say, after hearing the truth beyond all doubt, someone else might say, after visualizing the truth beyond all doubt. And so we don't know, we tend to speak with our preferred way of being in the world and use that word. So I took it that way rather than we all need to be able to see it with that. But that's such a great point, Susan, to wonder, what does that mean? Anybody else have a take on that?
Catherine said there is the macro and the micro, a tightrope that gets narrower on the path. Ask awareness for clarity and penetrating and engaging in a specific area, and wake up those pieces that get lost or hidden into the big picture. Amy said, I agree, Susan, this is confusing. It can only be seeing with the inner eye. Or as in today's Course in Miracles lesson, I will not use the body's eyes today. Seeing is with the heart, isn't it? Yeah.
And yet, when someone, I'm a feeling type in the sense that I would use those words, I feel. And then when you say I feel to someone who's a visual person, they go, I don't feel anything. I see it. So I don't know if it means anything except for how we interpret. And the inner eye and the heart, those are all, they're true, and yet the words are limited.
Yeah. Yeah, but the point he's making is when you know the truth of yourself, then it's St. Augustine, isn't it, who said, love and do as you will. It's the same kind of sentiment here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
once you know the self, throw yourself into whatever's presenting itself.
Mhm.
And everything is a sadhana, everything.
Yeah, I love that. And that the Course certainly says that, everything's your lesson.
Carrying on where you left off, Rosalyn, it said, it is said the world or the mind carries on its head the instrument for its own destruction. So also, if properly examined, it can be found that every question carries with it its own answer. On listening to the truth from the lips of the Guru for the first time, you unknowingly rise to the highest level in understanding and visualize the truth. All that you have to do after that is to go knowingly to the same height and visualize the truth as often as possible until that truth becomes your natural state. So that's interesting, isn't it? When we hear the truth from the lips of the Guru for the first time, without even knowing, we rise to the highest level in understanding.
But then earlier he said, until you have all these other steps, you don't have it. You're not even there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, yeah.
Jenny said, all senses point back to direct experience, whatever the form. Amy said, as Tom Das says, silence can only be recognised in silence. That's kind of where these discourses take me to. There's something in me that goes, it's words, this is all words. I just want to go back to the silence. Jude said, vision, seeing with the understanding of knowing. Oh, I like that, Jude. Vision is seeing with the understanding of knowing.
Yeah, bringing it all together.
Truth knows itself. Yeah, exactly.
Really,
Truth
really
knows itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so the final one, reality of states compared. At the lowest level, there are 3 states, waking, dream, and deep sleep states. Examining them closely, one finds there are only 2 states, the deep sleep and dream states. So let's just pause at that part. So what happened then to the waking state at this point? When we examine closely the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep state. What do you say to that, Rosalyn?
I think he says the waking and the dream state are the same. And so that's why it disappears. And then he pares it down even more. So I think we have to go all the way with the paragraph to see how to get to his conclusion.
So examining them still further, one finds there is only the deep sleep state. Examining deep sleep more closely, it's found to be no state at all. The dream and waking states are only appearances on deep sleep. It is, and this is the kicker, isn't it? Here it comes. It is in and through me that all activities take place. But the mistake is made in the attempt to objectify the non-doer self and its experiences exactly as in other activities. We're always trying to split again into subject and object
Yeah.
states.
Yeah.
Chop it all up so that we can grasp with the mind.
And that's such a beautiful sentence. If we can just take it in, it's in and through capital Me that all activities take place. But the mistake is made in the attempt, that's exactly what you were amplifying, Susan, to objectify that non-doership and its experiences exactly as in other activities. That we're trying to make it into a person and a doer when it's just all happening.
It's just all happening, yeah. Amy's saying this is also confusing. It seems to imply that sleep itself should cause enlightenment, yet clearly this is not so. Deeply refreshing, yes, but sleep itself does not appear to catalyze awakening. And well, it seems to be implying that there's an arbitrary division into these three states that don't actually exist, and there's an arbitrary division into a me that needs to be awakened, when actually it is in and through me, capital M, me, consciousness, that all things, all activities take place.
In relation to what Amy said, I think we are completely in awareness when we're in that deep sleep, but we don't know it until we wake up, and then we discount it. So it doesn't help us in the waking state. I think what he's saying is it is completely there. We are there. We just not have understood that.
Yeah. As Eve pointed out, the start of the paragraph has the explanation in that it is at the lowest level, there are three states.
Yeah. Right.
Melissa, you're going to have to explain this one to me. Manolea is not the same as Mananasa. Okay, here's Melissa. You need to come and explain that because I have no idea what you just said.
Just that Ramana Maharshi pointed out repeatedly, Manolea is the mind that basically subsides in deep sleep. And when it subsides, then essentially the self, or the ego, shall we say, the ego is submerged completely in the true self. But that's not the same as Manonasa. It's just a brief temporary state. And then the mind arises again when we wake again to the usual waking state. But Manonasa is the complete, if you will, annihilation of the mind, or annihilation of a sense of the separate self. And then it never rises again.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. Thank you.
And Julia had something to say. It's only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. That's a quote from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
That's from The Little Prince, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only with the heart that one can see rightly what is essential. Is invisible to the eye. Lovely. Catherine, the primitive mind is a tool to use to point into the infinite possibilities that are available. There's so much beauty in this group and in your words. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So, Elizabeth, it feels to me there is a desired recognition of wanting only to surrender, and yet a fear of complete surrender from the separate self identification. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? We've come to the end of our section. Rosalyn, what was your overall? What did you take from this overall? I always kind of like to think how, you know, what can be not practiced as such, but what did you find from this that you didn't, that would maybe clarified something that you didn't have before?
I think what I can integrate and is available to me right now is the isness, dropping into the isness. For me, making it as simple as I can is my hook. And so isness, that's not a word he uses, but it speaks to me, to everything, pure consciousness, the ultimate, no separation. Doesn't matter how it looks, whatever appearances are out there. If I remember the isness, and there were so many places in this chapter, if you will, this section that brought up the isness, pure consciousness. So that's what I take away.
Thank you. Thank you. The same really. And the part that stayed with me, or is staying with me, is after visualizing the truth beyond all doubt, throw yourself, heart and soul, into any activity and lose yourself in it. That, I like what Holger said as well, about, you know, duality is not bad. Duality is not a mistake. What's important is who do I think I am, or who do I know myself to be?
Oh, beautifully said. Wow.
Holger said, Muji said, truth is simple, the seeker is complex. Ain't that the truth?
Thank you. That's great. That's wonderful.
Thank you, everybody, so much. Now, if I was a really good host, like Bill Free, I'd be able to tell you who was the co-host next week, but I actually have no clue. So if you're the co-host, please identify yourself. I'm not sure who it is next week, because I didn't look it up. So if anybody knows, put it in the chat. But otherwise, you'll be surprised when you come next week to see who it is. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Rosalyn, for your lovely contribution. It's been great to be with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.